China's model in Africa has been described by commentators as one of promoting development without democracy. Experts who testified at a hearing of the United States House Foreign Affairs Africa Subcommittee said that a lack of transparency and accountability, repression of civil society, and human rights violations were gripping the region as China collaborates with African countries. In one example, a former Guinean mining minister helped China International Fund Limited to obtain exclusive mining rights. He was convicted of money laundering to an amount of $8.5 billion in August 2017. A study by the International Republican Institute on the interference of China in 13 key countries indicates that China exerts undue influence over foreign countries' economic and political systems through, among others, economic aggression and other influencing operations. The report warns that this conduct of China represents a threat to US strategic and economic interests. China's Belt and Road Initiative, for example, suffers from a lack of transparency. The lack of information aids in the protection of corrupt elites who play a role in enabling projects. Zambia, for example, paid twice the African average per kilometer for the construction of roads, while the price paid for 42 fire engines was also 70% above market value. Companies from China were granted special privileges in Zambia, which resulted in many of these not complying with legislation that requires them to subcontract work to local companies, for example. Referring to the free trade zone in Igbisa, Ogun, Nigeria, Wilson Wu, manager of the zone, said, "It is like managing a country. We have our own customs, our own police, our own operations. The Igbisa free trade zone is designed to be an enclave of stability and efficiency," according to Wu. There are accusations from African employees that Chinese workers refuse to integrate and that they work in unmarked dormitories and offices. Although the literature on the labor practices of Chinese companies in Africa is limited, there are three types of common claims and perceptions that are often found in media reports and certain academic publications, and in fact, when interviewing different kinds of respondents in business and government settings. In the first place, Chinese companies employ large numbers of workers from China in positions that can be filled with employees from Africa. In the second place, working conditions are exploitative and substandard. And in the third place, there is little effort to develop the skills of employees from Africa. A survey of 1,000 companies from China by McKinsey indicates that these companies rely largely on African labor. The average percentage of Africans in the workforce is 89%. There are significant differences between countries, however, with Angola and Equatorial Guinea receiving more employees from China relative to other countries. Most available studies indicate that companies from China offer lower wages than competitors in some cases, but do comply with minimum wage legislation. OIA cites one study which concluded that in Angola, Ghana, Namibia, South Africa and Zambia, the trend is for companies from China to pay the lowest wages when compared to other foreign companies. He also refers to a 2018 survey in the Eastern Industrial Zone in Ethiopia that indicates that average wages among factories from China are well above the national average in the formal sector. When compared to other foreign companies, working conditions in companies from China are harsher in terms of more frequent breaches of labor regulations, long working hours, lack of formal contracts, and resistance to unions. Companies from China do engage in labor training. The report by McKinsey indicated that almost 2/3 of the companies that were surveyed train African employees. Survey work suggests that workers arrive with high expectations and are therefore in many cases unsatisfied with the amount of training provided. Employees of global companies receive more frequent and substantial training. Bloomberg reported in 2008 that child labor had been used in the copper and cobalt mines of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The children who worked in the mine had to dig ore by hand and carry bags of ore on their backs. The ore was then purchased by Chinese companies. More than 60 of the Katanga province's 75 processing plants are owned by Chinese companies, and 90% of the region's minerals go to China. A report by an African NGO claims that 80,000 child laborers younger than 15 years, or about 40% of all miners, were supplying ore to Chinese companies in this region. It has been speculated for more than a decade that China is using prison labor in Africa, with reports from mainstream news outlets stating it as a fact and conflicting reports claiming that it is a myth. It was first reported by the New York Times in 1991 that a Chinese company in Benin was using prison labor to build a road, and that between 70 and 75% of the construction workers were known to be prisoners. The author, a trustee of the International League for Human Rights and a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Human Rights in the Carter administration, pleaded for African governments to ensure that prison labor is specifically banned before they sign contracts with Chinese companies. The claim was later repeated in the Washington Times and The Guardian, and later also in Asia News. China's Ministry of Commerce denied the allegations. The claim was also denied in lesser-known publications, however. Deborah Broughtigam responded in the China-Africa Research Initiative that no evidence had been provided for this claim and that her best guess was that the story was an urban myth. Given the uncertainty on the topic, it would be premature to reach conclusions without tangible evidence. It is a matter that deserves further investigation, however.